What's up, Strokers? It's your boy Jake Z-Man here, aka BrusHstroKeZ. And today we're going to be painting a tumbler. This is for my 1,000 subscriber giveaway that is long overdue. My winner was Neb3310, and what he wanted done on this tumbler, I will pop an image right up over here for you. So that's what we're going to be painting today. I already have done the prep work. This is a stainless steel tumbler. I used SEM self-etching primer to prep this. I do have a video on that if you want to see how that's done. I'll put a link right up here in the corner of the screen if you want to see how I prepped it up to this point. But the first step we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to be using Createx water-based paint, so we're going to use some auto-borne sealer here. You always want to make sure it's good and shooken up. I did shake this up already, so don't need to shake it super good. Just pour. Now we're going to be doing Neb's picture there is actually, those are called spin tops. They're used in juggling. They're not like just some kids' toys. They're really like fancy CNC done, CNC cut, and they got really nice stainless steel bearings on them. So just one of the hobbies he has. So now we're gonna use roughly 10% reducer. Now with Createx, all their paint, once you reduce it, it's best to mix it. I usually mix it for at least 30 seconds to a minute, and then the works a lot better. It flows way better if you let it sit for. I let it sit for usually 10 minutes at least, 10 to 15 minutes before I spray it. When you do that, it just seems to spray a lot nicer, and it levels out really, really nice. All right, so while our paint sits, this is Adobe Illustrator. I had went in and designed the spin tops in there, so we'll go ahead and get that cut out. All right, so we are back now. Our paint has had a chance to emulsify. It's been about 10-15 minutes since we mixed this. We're going to be applying it with our LPH 80. First, we'll want to wipe this. I've already cleaned this cup, but never hurts to wipe it down one more time. So we'll wipe this down with wax and grease, and then we'll flip it over the dry side and wipe off any of that wax and grease that was on there. Using my trusty LPH 80. This thing I'm running at like 14 or 15 psi, like recommended. Fan is full. And fluid is, we're about halfway out. Now, since we're going to be doing one of these spin tops in white, the way I designed this is so you can see the whole thing on one side. So it's almost perfect with the tumbler. So for the white part, we're going to paint like half of this white. So just blow it off with air. Make sure there's nothing, no dust or debris that got on there. Well, there's our first coat. Probably went a little too heavy. That's all right. All right, so after messing up that first coat, having reducer in my gun still, I went ahead and did 3 really light coats to get it all evened out there. So we'll go ahead and get our first vinyl put on here, the first top, and then we'll get to spraying our next color. All right, now we're going to mix up some Createx Wicked Opaque Jet Black. All right, so we've got our black loaded up, our vinyl stencil on. Let's go ahead and get some paint on it. ended up putting 3 coats of the Wicked Opaque Jet Black on there. It's nice and smooth, so we'll go ahead and put on our other spin top here. And how I lay this down, I'm bending it so the center lays down first. I do have a little white Stabilo pencil mark down here to mark my center. All right, now that we got our vinyl applied for both of our spin tops, we're going to do the flames. We're going to do them a little different here too. Instead of using white and then candy paint, we're going to use Quicksilver Chrome by HELPZ as our base. I'm probably just going to throw on a time lapse, but we're going to do the red first, or the base for the red in Quicksilver, and we're going to keep this kind of loose. You know, we'll have more fire at the bottom and it'll kind of tail off towards the top of the cup. So go ahead and throw that time lapse on. Alright, so we got our tumbler all based out, ready for the red part of the flames. And for that, we're going to be using Createx UVOS Gloss, the 4050, mixed with Blood Red Candy 2.0. I did mix those about 50-50, so I did not use any reducer. I don't like using reducer with this technique. Reducer kind of helps candies to bleed, so we're going to try to do this without any like intercoating. So I got my gun all set up here, loaded up, and I'm spraying this at 14 psi, and I'm only like a quarter of a turn out. So there's our first coat. As you can see, it looks a little different than going over white. Alright, let that dry and do another coat. Alright, so I went ahead and did 4 5-ish coats. Really light coats of the candy, blood red. So we're going to go ahead and for this next step, we're going to lay out the orange part of the fire, and we're going to use some stencils. As you go red, orange to yellow, your fire goes loose to tight. So this is, you know, really loose. I didn't use any shields at all. I just kind of free-handed that Quicksilver on there. And now we are going to put it in time lapse again, and we'll go ahead and spray the Quicksilver for our next step, the candy or grabber orange. so I forgot to turn on my mic for this last part, but I'm just using some over-reduced Createx illustration black and white for the shading on the spin tops here. I just do a little bit of black shading around the outside of these to make them look like they got a little depth and dimension from that paint. And then I'll go in and paint the stainless steel tips on these and the shading on the top. And I'll just put the rest of this in time lapse with some tunes and let you enjoy.